I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast. More specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. That is KDot, and this episode is jam-packed. Dan Quinn has his intro press conference with the team. We're going to talk about that. And we've made two coordinator hires. Kliff Kingsbury, that's the big name that you are all well aware of. Former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, former head coach at Texas Tech. He knows Mahomes, knows Kyler, all that jazz. He is now our offensive coordinator. And Whitt Jr. comes with Dan Quinn from Dallas to be our defensive coordinator. So we're going to get into all that. We got the comment mailbag as always. We got after the pod. And before we begin the episode, if you could please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and KDot.
Share this shit. Share it. Share the shit. Share this shit. Share it.
Please share this shit. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, KDot, today was a great day because, again, Dan Quinn was introduced as our new head coach. And honestly, he checked a lot of boxes for me. I checked sort of social media to see how the perception was. Was it good? Was it not good? Did people have their minds change? Stuff like that. And overall, very positive. Now, we've seen a number of home run press conferences before, so we'll have to wait until we are actually on the field playing games, of course. But a lot of meat on that bone in this press conference. He said a lot of stuff. It went for about an hour. What were your takeaways from it? And how excited are you right now, bud?
When you said the vibe being positive, all I could think about is how most people are just cold bitches. In the sense of, like, everyone has this view possibly negative about somebody until they see them as a person.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, I like this guy now. It's
oh,
like,
he's a human.
Yeah,
he's
like
nice.
You and Kirk Cousins in the quarterback show. Like, there's an aspect
I held
like,
true.
Yeah. You're a terrible person.
We'll get into it after the pod. Please continue.
Y'all know I dug it. Like, Dan Quinn, like, having to check himself on the cussing. Man, out of my own heart, man. Love that. It was just a good vibe, man, and just seeing all three of them together and hearing, like, if I was doing a drinking game of, like, phrases or words that I appreciate the most, the one that was said the most in this was collaboration. And I think if you listen to this pod, you know I'm all about the collaborative effort when it comes to the team, man. Like, this to me was huge. I love his energy. I love the media had a ton of questions for him. They didn't wrap anything up real quick. They were like, yeah, Q&A, let's do it, right? It just felt good. I love that it didn't feel like they lied either. I think everybody over the last couple of weeks was saying, well, then they're going to have to sit down and tell us how he was the number one pick. They didn't say that shit. They didn't lie. They kept true to it, which is what I always go back to, that none of us knew what the fuck the list was, right? It was just a matter of, like, hey, we did our due diligence. We went through the process. And when everything was all right, he was the best candidate in the situation for us. And that's great. That's all I want. And to hear the way that he thinks about the head coach position itself, I dig it. Like, we talked about this last offseason. We were talking about how it is you build a team, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like, I like my coach to be the guy, the trendsetter, the guy who sets the tone for what it is the team itself is going to be, right? The overseer of everything. And then beyond that, he's got to be plugged into the team, right? And then you have your guys that you hold them accountable to staying true to what the path is, and you can trust them to do their thing. And this is what she's constant. It was a barrage of that.
I want to jump in and say that one of the things that really impressed me, KDot, was, first off, he's a very clear communicator. So we talked about that being important for Adam Peters, that being important for Josh Harris. On the subject of communication, he made the identity very clear. He wants to be explosive and he wants to be physical. Now, that's fun to hear, and you're going to hear that a lot from various coaches. That's what we want to do, and that's great. But he explained why, which I really appreciated. which is that you don't. And if you're an athlete or you've played sports at any moment and you've played really, really well, oftentimes you're not thinking. And that was his point with the identity. He wants to make it so simple and easy, and you know your role, and you're not thinking out there, because if you are, you're too slow. And that's where things go south. So he immediately identified, I want to be explosive, I want to be physical, and I want to make sure my players are so comfortable that they do not have to think out there. That was very refreshing for me, KDot.
No, 100%. Like, he has it in his mind where it is that he knows the team should be. You keep hearing him say that he's not going to say the word rebuilding, it's a recalibration, which I like to hear too, because we and you have talked. There's talent clearly on this team. And there are guys who we would say, I would say one of the biggest deficits as far as where it is that they were missing as far as coaching last year. From an X's and O's standpoint, you can look at defense, you can look at the missing of Chris Harris and what it is they were doing for those guys. Terrible shit. You can look at on offense as far as from a play calling standpoint, what they were doing as far as the pass compared to run, all that. The hardest part for me was that the team played with zero energy, and they never felt as though they knew who they were. It's the moments in which you saw anyone get fiery. We have to look back 2 years ago when Taylor Heineke was playing, or when you see Chase Young, who might be a rah guy, but then you question his effort on the field on Sundays, right? So like, there's an element to, if everyone knows this is the way we need to be about it, then let's go. I know that we talked about the during training camp last year when you had the Terry McLaurin, Ben St. Jewish thing, where Eric Bieniemy got on Terry's ass, and then since that point, Terry's usually a pretty vocal, maybe not vocal, but you could tell he's got that energy, right? He got that thing. And you saw it maybe once last year, twice.
I mean, there was a moment, the quote was, I ran a lot of cardio today at one point.
Right. So that to me is like, these are some guys that need a fire lit. These were guys that thought that was going to be the case with Eric Bieniemy when he got hired last year. And it ended up being not that, because you can't have one dude doing it his own way with no one else working towards that or in that. And if you have a head coach in Ron Rivera who basically looks like he can't react to anything, you want to poke him. Do you feel things? Do you feel anything, man? Like, you're not going to feel that with us. You're going to feel something with us.
Right.
If there were two major things that I say that that I had to notate from the press conference as far as what I love, the recalibrating, not rebuilding, the collaboration, that was it. So actually one more thing. And this is a direct tie to what we've talked about as far as those C words, the collaboration and communication. When Adam Peters and Dan were talking about basically they're going to have a shared door to their office,
I figured you'd like that.
Damn near creamed my pants. Like, that was the idea. So even Ron was talking about how like he felt so separated from the team and from everybody else in the sense that even where his office was placed, like he felt like he wasn't a part of it. And it feels as though these guys are like, no, the culture's got to run through this team from top to bottom. We're not going to make any decisions without each other.
Can I also jump in and say that one of the things I noticed is it was a small thing that I think maybe would have gone unnoticed for some people. The way that we do press conferences, or at least intro press conferences, is different than in years past. They are all sitting together. Josh Harris, he's the owner and he's taking ownership. When you look back at that video, he's going to be right there and he's answering some questions as well. I thoroughly appreciate that. Adam Peters, the GM, also right there. Dan Quinn, also right there. So I decided to look around the league. Who all does that? San Francisco does that. They did it with Jed York. They did it with Kyle Shanahan. And they did it with John Lynch. You talk about first-class organizations, right? You want to be them. I tried looking for the Ravens, but they're so sustained that you couldn't find a video of John Harbaugh's intro press conference. But then you saw what Ron did, and he was on his own up there when he got hired. It was Dan, shook his hand, moved on. So just the little things in terms of that collaboration, in terms of the shared
it's not
door.
Little. It's not little.
But so, that's my point, is that it is attention to detail, and that's already aligned vision.
So I know that I talk every once in a while about like my history as a sales coach, which is very different than a football coach, but there are certain principles as far as just motivating people or whatever. But in that world, there were so many classes I used to take about how it is you even position your desk, or what body language means and can change everything. The idea that we're not going to have no podium that one guy goes out Then he kind of shuffles off to the side. That guy stands up there, and then he's tired. You can clearly see he doesn't want to be standing anymore. Let's wrap this shit up. And you got John. You got one of the press guys come over. All right, it's over, guys. No, let's sit down right here in front of you. Open up to everybody. I don't remember having an hour of unfettered access to anyone in this organization for a minute. Like, that felt great. It felt as though all the reporters in the room were like, "You guys got any more questions? I think we covered it all."
Yeah.
It's like, all right, now we're over, guys. Like, that's nuts. That's fucking nuts.
It's fucking nuts. And it was honestly awesome. It was refreshing. And I want to touch on a couple other things. When you had mentioned that Dan Quinn did a good job of explaining the role of a head coach, or at least his version of a head coach, because it seems to vary from organization or from person, even from person to person. He is going to be instrumental, of course, in establishing the identity. We mentioned that, but he also talked about working with Adam Peters, which was another box that was checked for me. And he said the same thing Adam did in his intro, identifying specific traits and roles. So, for example, this would be our H-back. I don't know that we're actually going to have an H-back. We'll talk about Kliff Kingsbury in a moment. But this will be our starting defensive lineman. Like, this will be the person we want at corner because of the following traits. And focusing on what makes a player tick, what makes them special. And you think about the coaching staff last season, like Eric Bieniemy wanted to play like we had Mahomes back there.
Mm-hmm.
We had the most passing attempts. Mm-hmm. He did not adjust for personnel. Mm-hmm. And on that note, he will not be returning with the team. That was also answered by Dan Quinn. And he said it is a coaching brotherhood. And I have a lot of respect for him. But yeah, he won't be here next year, but I do wish him all the best. So he respectfully answered that question. Eric will not be here. And so hopefully he does manage to turn around and learn from this experience, because he did gamble on himself and it was cool. But this is exactly what I wanted to hear, KDot. And he also mentioned personnel development, that he is going to hold a very big part of that piece of developing the players. Again, figuring out what makes them tick, figuring out what makes them good, and helping them have a vision. Talked about in college, maybe they don't have a vision, or the players have been bullshitted in the past, or they get by with just talent, but they don't quite have a vision for themselves. He's like, I will do that for them. I will give that to them. I will work with the offense. I will work with the defense. But let me be clear, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, they're calling the plays. It was just such a clear delineation of tasks, of roles, of responsibilities. It was so refreshing. It was great. I'm completely sold on Dan Quinn, at least based on the stuff he said and how clear a communicator he is, KDot.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, there's a difference between, like, the Ron Rivera era, especially at the end, where he talked about how he felt more like a manager than a coach, right? Like, he's managing, not coaching. And I think that's what Dan did a great job. To me, it was explaining what the difference is in that. You do need to have managerial skills. You do need to be able to know how to delegate. But you also have to know that this is your team, and your fingerprints have to be all over it. When he said, no, Joe's going to call plays on defense, Kliff's going to call plays on offense, but I'm going to be involved in the game plan. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear, hey, I might have said something through the media that maybe Eric Bieniemy might have heard to make an adjustment on offense.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be part of this together.
Right. Right. And it sounds like he wants to run the ball more. Again, this is going to be interesting with Kliff Kingsbury, but
every defensive coach. It's not a defensive coach alive that says, which is why I love it.
Right. Well, and so got a couple avenues I can go here. One other plus about Dan Quinn. Someone had asked, I forgot who, about being in the NFC East. And he talked about, being born and raised in New Jersey and spending time in Virginia and spending time in Maryland. So he was born and raised on NFC East football. He has a sense of that style and what it's about. And he also said, hey, look, people go all over the place in the league, but I'm paraphrasing here, I'd be lying if I didn't say there are some advantages. I know the personnel in this division. It helps him hit the ground running so that when we play Philadelphia, when we play New York, when we play Dallas, he is familiar with 6 games on our schedule right there immediately. Yep. And so that is something to be excited about. And then I want to just one more time shout out Josh Harris, shout out Adam Peters, and shout out Dan Quinn. They were asked by Nikki Javala, were there any surprises in the coaching search? And I actually was like, Nikki, you why? I'm very nervous for a moment because I was like, if they could flinch, they could easily. This is a Ben Johnson territory question. You could easily go there. And they both talked about, hey, this is a very thorough process. There's certain rules you need to go through and need to understand. And Josh Harris focused much more on like, hey, this is what's like in the NBA. This is what it's like in the NFL. Adam Peters, same thing. The process was extremely thorough. This was my first time going through it as the guy. And just applaud them for completely nipping that in the bud. Because old regime, there's no chance the old regime just nips that in the bud, dude. I was just like, oh my God, so perfectly answered. Thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah,
so
the Ben
much.
Johnson thing has existed in the zeitgeist longer than it should.
Yes,
I know
I'm
today
over it.
the amount of effort, the amount of time I spent today arguing with people that are saying this is just the current administration is doing exactly what it is that Dan Snyder would have done, all kind of, and it's just horse shit. Um, yeah, it's a look. Anyone on the fence or anything, like, it didn't take much convincing because I was already here as far as Dan Quinn. To me, the only person I wanted above him really was Raheem Morris.
Raheem.
Um, with when all the cards laid out the way they laid out, right? Like, I love Mike McDonald. He wasn't bringing Joe Horties. We got somebody better than Adam Peters. Changes things. Like, I love it. I hope everybody's on board now. I hope you saw enough. Look, none of this shit matters unless they win some fucking games.
Yeah, that's all it is. So why don't we go ahead and move on to Dan Quinn? So people are going to call it a buddy hire, but KDot, this is a damn good hire. Okay, so defensive coordinator. Everyone's talking about Kliff Kingsbury. We're going to talk about him as well, but I wanted to focus on Joe Whitt Jr., who's going to be our defensive coordinator over here. He was the defensive pass game coordinator over there in Dallas. And let me tell you, based on last season, we could use all the coordination we can get because it was just busted coverage after busted coverage after busted coverage. People didn't know where to be. Emmanuel Forbes was robbed of confidence. Quan Martin played like it felt like 2 games and had interceptions in them, but also would get lost.
Yep.
This is a huge hire, KDot. You and I were talking just before this. You were calling it what? The most underrated move of the offseason?
I think it's the most underrated move of the offseason. It's definitely the one that is not getting the press coverage that it deserves unless you. So, like, we're John Keimhive over here, but there are definitely some other reporters that you start to understand or have an appreciation for that are across the country, right? Everybody, I guess, and watched this has watched Around the Horn at least once or twice. When you see some of the top reporters from certain areas that just they know their shit. And when I start listening to those guys in and around the Dallas areas, when you start realizing like, oh fuck, it's a multi-pronged thing with the Joe Whitt hire, right? Number one, as far as someone that Dan Quinn knows that can execute what it is he's looking for, you have it. Like what he does as far as pass game coordination and the secondary coach in Dallas. I mean, outside of Michael Parsons, this has been where they've exceeded and excelled beyond all possible, right? Diggs coming out of fucking nowhere, leading the league in interceptions. Deron Bland last year out of fucking nowhere.
5th round pick in 2022.
Nuts, right? So like what they're able to develop as far as from a secondary standpoint, and then knowing that's something that he really he strives to get, and then knowing that like everyone here knows our secondary is extremely talented. They just haven't lived up to what it is that we think they could do. Emmanuel Forbes, absolutely. Quan Martin has shown some flashes at the beginning of the season, but it's like you get excited knowing that these guys are going to get coached up. Cam Curl looked like he regressed 1,000 years beyond Chris Harris. The stats and the PFF rating, everything don't necessarily say that, but just from an eye test, he was doing too much, right? So
way too much.
Right. So there's an element of like, holy shit, we got somebody that can coach up guys. And there is something to not just a guy, but a dude that really understands and knows Dan Quinn through and through, can really execute. Because Dan Quinn and his defense is a known commodity in the NFL. And the shit works. It works. The second part of it, and this is much quicker, addition by subtraction when it comes to fucking Dallas.
Yes.
They are scrambling. So the idea with Dallas is that they knew that there was a good chance they could lose Dan Quinn, but the idea would be, hey, we can promote Joe Whitt. Like, let everybody, like, that was the thing is like, you could see what I'm hearing from out of Dallas is they thought because Al Harris, great cornerback in the NFL, actually was a cornerback in Green Bay under Joe Whitt, if you want to take it back,
Mm-hmm.
Along with Charles Woodson and all those guys. They won a Super
Tramon
Bowl.
Williams, Sam Shields. Yeah, there's some guys.
Right. But yeah, if you really look at Witt's career, it's insane. But
Yeah,
the
he's
idea
brilliant.
is that Al Harris was the name. He's the name. You don't know who Joe Witt is. You know who Al Harris is. You know who Al Harris is. And the idea was that Dallas thought the name would be flashy enough that he would go somewhere. And the idea is that you could promote Joe Witt from within, give him the defensive coordinatorship, and he'd be happy to have that star on his chest and do this and that. What did he say? No, going with my guy. I'm leaving. And now there's no talk about them promoting Al Harris. It's, are they going to get Ron Rivera? Are they going to get Mike Zimmer? Are they going to get this guy, that guy, this guy? And that, to me, the one part, there was a significant part of that Dallas team that was working, is that defense. And now it looks like they're going to go back to the fucking drawing board. And if you want to think long term, maybe Micah Parsons won't be that happy, and he's looking for somewhere new to be.
Oh boy. So, I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. But I just wanted to also mention, so Joe Witt seems to be the more level-headed call. Like, everyone loves playing for Dan Quinn because he gets to know you. He gets to know what makes you tick, what makes you off the field as much as on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see him on TV when Deron Bland had the pick six, which, by the way, I mean, I was livid when Sam Howell threw that thing. But Dan Quinn is like super excited over there, right? Joe Witt is actually the one that thinks about the next stuff. Okay, well, Bland plays special teams, so we need to give him a blow here and relax. And now we need to get back on defense. So he is the calm, relaxed. He's playing chess. Not to say that Dan Quinn isn't, just to be clear. But what'd you say?
You never saw The Godfather.
Of course not. I haven't seen movies. We've talked about this.
So if anyone in the comments, I'm going to let Amit continue, but if you want to know who Joe Witt is, he's Tom Hagen. He's the perfect consigliere. He's your second in command. He's the perfect executor of the plan. He's got everything figured out. He's Tom Hagen. If you know what that is, that's all you need to know.
I mean, listen, I'm incredibly excited about Joe Whitt Jr. over here as our defensive coordinator, because I think you talk about that identity of explosive and physical and making sure that they don't think. There were reports that we had Quan Martin in 3-4 different positions in training camp. He's a rookie.
Yeah.
Like, that is just coaching malpractice. So no wonder he looked confused. No wonder he didn't play. And then he's wondering, am I good enough to be in this league? Like, that's what happens when you mismanage personnel. And I have complete confidence in this staff because of what Dan Quinn did in Seattle, because of what Dan Quinn did in Dallas, even Atlanta to a certain extent. I have complete faith in this coaching staff to be able to simplify things. Hey, you just focus on this one role. Don't worry about that. And you play fast. That is it. I'm very, very excited about this hire, KDot. He also spent all his time in Dallas with Dan Quinn, the last year in Atlanta with Dan Quinn. He's been in Cleveland. Like, the man has been all over the league. He's incredibly well respected. Love it.
That Cleveland, I was looking back. Everybody knows how it ended in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn even alluded to it in this presser because they asked him point blank. And one thing about him, he did not shy away from it. He admitted, he took full responsibility. He owned it, which I love. He owned it, said that he learned from it, which has been my big thing. But if you look at that Cleveland Browns defense, right? They were ranked, like, I think overall, like 22nd, 23rd in defense. The running defense was like 28th, 29th. In every passing category, they were top 10.
This is what you're bringing to the table here as your defensive coordinator. And even the complaint with Dallas's defense this year, too small up front, you could get run on. It wasn't really about the pass defense.
And the thing is, if you're looking at Dallas, the big issue with that was not scheme. It was personnel. And if you're looking at personnel, guess what we have here that Dallas don't have? The big men up front.
Yep. Yeah, and in fact, Dan Quinn alluded to that as well, saying, hey, the inside guys, talking about Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, love them. And he mentioned the skill players as well. So why don't we go ahead and flip the script? Let's talk about the offense.
Let's do it.
Kliff Kingsbury is now the offensive coordinator over here after a bit of a snafu with the Las Vegas Raiders, where it looked like he was going to be the offensive coordinator over there. And then all of a sudden something happened with the contract talks. And next thing you know, he's our offensive coordinator.
2 years and 3 years, man. Big difference.
And so you'll know that KDot, if you listened to our previous episode, had mentioned Kliff Kingsbury as an option along with other people in the media. So well done, sir.
Thank you.
Now, when my initial reaction, KDot, to this was, and it flipped because of the Dan Quinn press conference, so I'll even get ahead of that. But it was like, boy. Because the initial thought was a lot of shotgun, a lot of throwing the ball, right? They talk about the rush attempts. They're like, oh no, but they were like 6 or 7. He had Kyler Murray. It includes those runs. And so I'm like, okay, but maybe that's a bit inflated. We don't know who the QB is going to be. Does it mean we're moving up for Caleb? Oh, okay. No, he also knows Phil Longo, who's a North Carolina connection. Maybe that's Drake May. Oh, but if we're looking for a mobile quarterback, Jaden Daniels, is he going to know what he wants? Like I was starting to go, He found Mahomes. That's awesome. It's probably the greatest find in NFL history. So you got to give him that. Of course, you got to give him that. But his record at Texas Tech, not good. His record with the Arizona Cardinals, he went to the playoffs his 3rd year. But outside of that, how was it? Now he's the quarterbacks coach over at USC, and now he's an offensive coordinator in the NFL. So I was skeptical until Dan Quinn said, and this is what really won me over, that when he hired Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta, the reason he did so is because he found Kyle very difficult to guard schematically. And he said, I'm getting similar vibes from Kliff. Now, this isn't calling Kliff Kingsbury Kyle Shanahan by any means, because we have a track record with Kliff, and it's not that good, to be honest, in my opinion. But when you combine it with the personnel development, and then you realize it's actually a chemistry between your head coach and Dan Quinn, right? He is interested in the player. He's interested in maximizing their abilities. Kliff Kingsbury, how is he going to maximize the player? A lot of the QBs he's worked with have really liked him, right? Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes. Like he's got guys. Of course, we had the Kyler thing, which was a bit, but Caleb Williams really likes him. He congratulated him on Instagram for taking this job. Mm-hmm. So you put those things together, and all of a sudden I go, you know what? It is a chemistry thing between the offensive coordinator, the head coach, and the general manager, and making sure that they get that position right. So I feel secure that the QB, and he's worked with a number of young QBs, KDot, and they've been good. They have been good. So like, I have faith that if we do take a QB at 2, that he will be able to ease him into an offense, an NFL offense, into NFL life, and be able to feel like he can be himself. So now I feel much better about it, knowing Dan Quinn's the guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so like, try to be honest and transparent through this entire thing. Kliff Kingsbury is my 3rd choice.
Okay.
Number 1 was Clint Kubiak. Number 2,
of course, mine too,
was Chip Kelly, and number 3 is Kliff. And look, when it comes to Kliff, you named all those quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, also Kyler. None of them are bad. They're all damn good. Maybe none of them will reach their peaks just yet. But like, I love Kyler Murray as far as a quarterback. I just think he can do some things better. I don't think that's luck to be involved in that many. Like there is an element of like, I can't recall anyone that can have a resume of having that many damn good quarterbacks they worked with on a personal level. You know what I mean? It's just
right. Oh, absolutely.
So like that to me, there's something there.
It is incredible. It is admittedly his QB resume, if you will, is incredible.
But the thing is, like, so pull the curtain back a little bit. I had a girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, for a couple years, 2-3 years.
Shout out.
She was a trainer at Texas Tech. She was a trainer on the football team at Texas Tech. So I had to watch a lot of fucking Texas Tech football. And I got to know who Kliff Kingsbury was. She gave me the full rundown. There's one player that everybody knows that went to Texas Tech that did some very inappropriate things. If you ever see me in person, I'll tell you. Beyond that, there are some articles that have been written about Kliff as far as like who he is as a dude, right? Which is that he's cool. Like you can see he oozes cool. Like he drives cool cars. He has cool clothes. He's a beautiful, handsome man. We all saw the house and all kinds of shit.
The house was unbelievable.
The house was insane.
Yeah.
The wife, just fucking crazy. He's got that kind of coolness about him. But there's another element of like when he's in the room as far as a football dude, there's always something missing. And what you see is that he's almost like fake it till you make it when it comes to like that confidence sort of thing that he tries to instill in guys. You don't necessarily buy it when he's trying to do it. To me, this is one of those things where it's like, this is one of those prime examples of good as a coordinator, bad as a head coach. And the thing with him, because of who he is and because of his resume of quarterbacks that he's worked with, and because that air raid offense that he is there, it works. It is a working, legitimate offense. Whether or not he's executed it to the fullest degree, we could talk about personnel. We could talk about a lot of other shit. I mean, the amount of times that Arizona was just trying to find fucking wide receivers to work and they just never panned out. Even post Kliff. It just there's some weirdness there. But there is an element of like, if even when you're making a connection as far as like what they do at UNC, I forget my man's name, that runs the air raid out of UNC, that
Bill Longo.
Bill Longo, he's a direct disciple. That's the offense.
And they're tight, by the way. And that's according to John Keim. So
which puts
you can make a case for any of them.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody, like we'll probably talk about it later as far as the Caleb Williams angle of this, but there's some stuff. There are options there.
Yes.
It's an offense that works. It's an offense that a lot of teams are really intrigued by. It's just that in order to get him, because of how hot a commodity it was, you couldn't get him as a coordinator. You had to get him as a coach.
Correct.
Right. So like he had to flame out to a certain degree in order to do that. Right. Plus, he doesn't really want to get another job somewhere because he's still getting fucking paid from Arizona. Until 2027, he's still getting fucking good money from Arizona. So he's not pressed to do that. He just wants to have a long-term deal somewhere, so he's collecting double paychecks until the Arizona stuff clears. So you got to know that. Yeah, to me, it's like all the negatives that you have with Kliff, to me, get erased when you have a Dan. As far as that,
that's exactly how I felt.
Yeah, it's if you have any negative about that, like as far as just him, and when you hear him talk, it's like, all right, he probably needs to step it up a little bit. I'm not going to deny that. There are some elements that he's got to do better. Same way Dan, last time he had the head coaching job compared to now, there are certain things you got to do better this time around. So absolutely. But the idea that it's not on all your shoulders, Kliff, you could focus on this aspect of it.
Just focus on the offensive
somebody
scheme.
Else
right
there that's working with you. Like that to me is huge.
Yeah.
And that other part of it, like I just said, if there's a concern, as there has been as far as if you hire a defensive coach, the offensive coordinator is going to go away. The reason Kliff was third on my list, so Clint Kubiak being number one, only reason he was number one is that he's young, but also the offense that he runs, a lot of other teams run from, do very something similar. And with the guys we have here, you can pull from that tree and keep the system moving. With Chip Kelly and Kliff Kingsbury, I'm not concerned about them becoming a head coach anytime soon. They have dirt on them from their last head coaching stints. Dan Quinn doesn't have the kind of dirt that these guys have. They got dirt on them. Chip Kelly has a lot of dirt on him.
Yeah, Chip Kelly definitely does.
A lot of dirt. And Kliff Kingsbury, once again, number one,
there's friction at UCLA right now.
It's Chip.
Yeah, so I mean, there's also that.
But the idea is that Kliff is still getting paid by Arizona. And if another team hires him for that same position, it's done. From what I understand, it's done.
Okay. So that would mean that he would at least be here for 3 years or something, because
which is why, if you look at why he turned down the Raiders job, wasn't money. It was the length of the contract. He wanted 3 years. They offered 2. Then when he was like, I think you guys might, then we're now hearing Magic Johnson's the one that makes the phone call.
So cool just having him as an owner as well.
And be like, hey.
Well, we just got Magic on the phone and we got Kliff. Yeah.
Right. Like, you sure you want to do that? How about we can give you 3 years? Really?
Yeah. You're not going to the bar telling people you said no to Magic Johnson. It's just not going to happen.
So I think the length of that is, and not to mention Kliff Kingsbury has to prove it. He has to prove it. He has to prove that he's coming correct with this. There are a lot of other head coaching candidates. There are a lot of other guys who are going to be hot names next year. And to me, Kliff is doing a reclamation of his image to be a head coach again. And that, to me, if you're really doing it, that's a 2 to 3 year project.
Sure.
And by that time, there should be somebody else within the coach staff, if they're successful, what they're doing, that should be able to step up.
And so ultimately what boils down for me is Dan Quinn is going to be part of personnel development. He last identified Kyle Shanahan. That worked out very well for him. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
Right.
And say that, hey, Kliff could be a guy. Absolutely. And like you said, with all the quarterbacks he's worked with in the past, maybe it's not coincidence, So like,
I don't think it can be at this point. Like, there's too many guys. And every time I saw Kliff, it was the same thing. It's like, you might have a scheme. I just don't buy you. Like, I just don't buy you. But the thing is, he has great relationship with his quarterbacks. They love him. Oh, and the running back thing, Kenyon Drake did have a hell of a season with them. in 2020 in Arizona.
Okay, the one. Yeah, anyway. We'll get more into them schematically and stuff like that.
I'm just saying, Brian Robinson, for fantasy purposes, I think he could get double-digit touchdowns.
Oh, he's going to be running out of shotgun again, but like, again, we will talk more about this as we go. But we got to get to the comment mailbag, KDot, where we have so many comments. And thank you guys so much for them. We really appreciate it. We're going to go through them.
I'm not saying thank you yet.
Why aren't you saying thank you?
Depends on what the comments are.
It's called District Divided. We're going to get both sides. That was good, wasn't it? All right, let's go over to Vindo. Shout out, Vindo. Don't really listen to Colin Cowherd, but he was the one media person that somewhat supported this hire by comparing this to Houston and CJ Stroud. I'm not saying he's right, but he's definitely not wrong. And when you look at and thank you for that comment, Vindo, appreciate it. When you look at the situations, they are fairly similar. Okay, that's a team that has the number 2 overall pick. There are some questions about the roster. They've been bad for a number of years. There's not a lot of hope there. And now you get the guy, and all of a sudden it takes off. You get the defensive-minded coach, Dan Quinn. They got D'Amico Ryans. They nailed their pick with CJ Stroud. They got the offensive mind with Bobby Slowick. There are some similarities, certainly. What do you make of that, KDot?
I think we're all searching for trends in which we don't need to search for trends.
And you hate trends.
I do. That's why I'm like, red flag, red flag, red flag. How many teams do we know are bad one year and they're picking high in a draft? It happens every year.
It does.
And basically,
I was like, how do I answer that? It happens all the time.
And if they hire a defensive coach where we didn't say, oh my God, it's the same thing. Vindo, I love you, dog. But there's like, I just think this goes back to me being angry at Amit a few episodes ago. What you're doing, Vindo, what you're doing is just subconsciously setting an expectation.
I was just laying out the landscape. That's all I was doing. That's all I was doing.
Yeah.
Rather build in the NFC. We go over to Sauce.
I can see it already. Week 10. The Houston Texans did it. Why didn't we do it?
Can neither confirm nor deny. We go to Sauce 2123. Shout out. Appreciate the comment here. We don't have to defend a bad decision or mistake. It's okay to say the front office, this is for you, KDot. It's okay to say the front office choked this. We don't have to like this hire. 4 people agree with him with a like on the comment, to which Monty Byers replies, he hasn't even coached a game for us yet.
Thank you, Monty.
Okay, so that's Monty. That's Sauce. I will say this. Dan once again impressed me. I was actually excited for the hire when it occurred because it started doing a lot more of the research around Dan Quinn and also getting rid of the negative connotation of retread in my head that I was definitely guilty of. I think that this is honestly a safe and good hire. I really do. Because when he talks about being a head coach and him establishing identity and making sure he's involved with the personnel and people love to play for him, and his ability to be able to identify a good staff. It's everything KDot said. I got to give him props. I believe he was 100% spot on there. This is a good hire. What do you make of it, KDot?
Remember, I was kind of with you guys to a certain degree up until I was literally in a convenience store and a dude walked up to me and we started talking about it. And he's the one to put Raheem Morris in my lap.
We got to find that guy.
He was a little weird. It was very, very direct conversation. Like I appreciate it, but it was like he was a little off-putting. So
okay.
the idea is, when I say this, it's the same way that you did. People need to get their own opinion, I guess, to a certain degree, and eliminate it. The tunnel vision is the only thing that I've been cautioning against more than any other thing, right? Is that there are a lot of good candidates. Do not get tunnel vision for any one guy, and you start dreaming and fantasizing about anything that's going to happen with this one thing. You have to keep an open mind. You kept a fairly open mind, and when you started doing the research for yourself, what did you find out? Holy shit, there's reason to be excited about it.
Yes.
And what I'm seeing is that every single person that has a lot of negative shit to say about this hire and about the process are ones that haven't done enough research and spend a majority of their time on Twitter listening to other people talking to echo chamber that don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, a lot of echo chambers these days. And I think that's where the momentum and excitement comes from, because it's really 1 or 2 people that have said it. And then another 50 will say the exact same thing. So it seems like 52 people are saying it, but it was really just the one person.
The Ben Johnson thing is the biggest example of this. Like there's literally a Dan Graziano report in which the entire world then said that Ben Johnson was the only guy for the job and he's the only guy who's going to get it, Take a step back.
And that was it. That was it. Yeah, I loved going back to that. I was like, where did this come from? Oh, an ESPN article with a guess. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. All right, we
League
go over
circles are saying, shut
to
the fuck up.
Just Be 327. Shout out,
Just
Be.
be.
If DQ is so good, why can't he stop the Shanahan's tree style offenses? KDot, go ahead.
I argued with somebody about this. This is what I told you I had notes about. All right,
Floor
let's
is yours.
go. All right. So the Dan Quinn defense against the Shanahan offense is something to look at, right? But here's the thing. This goes back to what we were just talking about as far as people in echo chambers don't actually do any of the research. There was someone that did the research. He gave it all to me. I wish I remember his name, but he put it all in a blog about. I think the name of it is Dan Quinn is not as bad as you think he is.
All right.
All right. All right. So just give
Approachable
him
title.
This to me was great. This was fucking great. So in 2023, against Shanahan variations of his offense, right? In 2023, he played Green Bay, Miami, and San Francisco. Everybody remembers the Green Bay game, 48 points. They gave him 415 yards. It
41.
Great.
What was a pick six? Just to his credit.
So that's, yeah, I was gonna. So Dak threw 2 picks. One was for a touchdown. Was it great? No, but you got to remember those picks were huge as far as what happened when it came to the point total. Once again, everyone would look at it and say he did not. It was not
complimentary
a great game.
Football. Dak wasn't complimented.
Right, not at all. So then we go back beyond that. They also played Miami last year. 22 points. Anybody upset about 22 to Miami? No. They also played San Francisco. They gave 42 points to San Francisco. But in that game, Dak threw 3 picks. And they also had a fumble. 4 turnovers against the San Francisco 49ers. If you give those motherfuckers 4 extra opportunities, bro, that's a recipe for disaster.
Hey, listen, this just supports the Dak as another Kirk Cousins argument.
Dude, in 2022, San Francisco in the playoffs, what does Dallas do? 19 points. They held them to under 20. Then before that, they played Green Bay, 31 points. Dak threw another 2 picks.
Okay, so when they get offensive competence / support, it's all right.
But here's the other thing, is that we're naming these teams. San Francisco, Miami. They're great fucking teams.
They're good teams.
Right?
Well, I mean, what I was going to say was like the only person I've seen like successfully stop it, quote unquote, is Mike McDonald.
Right.
So far. So I can't think of that as, even if those point totals were all because of the defense, give the Shanahan tree some credit. Like there's a reason why the trend exists right now, because it is working across the league. Dan Quinn did speak about adapting, and he did adapt his defense after spending, oh my God, that was another great thing he did, was he talked about how important that gap was because it allowed him to focus just on defense and be able to recalibrate his defense, because he went, wait a minute, it doesn't work anymore the way it used to. Things have changed. So again, I don't think it's a knock. And even when he gets some complimentary football, seems to be all right. We got way too many comments. Please continue.
Against McVay, 20 points. Against McVay, 10 points. Against the Bengals, 17 points. Against the Vikings, 3 points. If we're talking about disciples of 2 trees, you cannot tell me that Dan Quinn can't coach defense.
I got faith in Dan Quinn, man. We go over to Lance Curtis, 4884. Shout out, Lance. Okay, brother. So y'all going to tell me that Josh Harris Group paid some professional basketball owner millions of dollars along with a brand new GM. Did you hear what I said? He hired a basketball owner, which is funny, to have him sit in on a football coach, not basketball coach, a football coach. So the basketball owner is going to tell the brand new football owner about a coach in football. So that's the story you're telling me. There's a lot more. So they all sat around, put their millions of dollar brains together, and at the end of the day, they said, Dan Quinn's the man. Who the hell do you think I am, bro? I wasn't a fan yesterday. You can't fool me. I've been through the Cook and the Danny Boy Snyder era, so you can't pull the wool over my head. So you mean to tell me that I honestly love this comment, that he paid all that money in the best person they came up with was Dan Quinn? Really? The lie you going to stick to, boy. I feel like Cat Williams, a club Shay Shay for real, brother. That's the story you going to stick with. It's a good pick. I like this pick, really. Okay. That last part was a touch confusing, but
he was pretending to be Cat.
Yeah, no. Okay, got it. No basketball owner was hired. We'll start there. A general manager was a very, very successful general manager who was cited today in the presser. And yeah, they did spend millions to make sure that they got their guy, and it was Dan Quinn, because if they did it just on Twitter, which is what we've been doing basically this whole time, we'd be fucked. That's the reality of it. We can't do the fan groupthink. Let
They should
the
have hired you,
people
but
that are successful. What'd you say?
they should have hired him.
Oh boy. We got another from Lance Curtis, actually. Okay, here we go. Ready? Shout out Lance Curtis, 4884. We've been rebuilding for 30 years with Dan Snyder. I'm going to tell you something, brother. We're going to rebuild 20 more. Trust me, this is going to set us back. Trust me, he's going to ruin that new quarterback. Because let me ask you a question. What offensive coordinator are they going to get, Kliff Kingsbury? He just got hired. Most of the good coordinators already have jobs. So what they going to do? An offensive coordinator, special teams, defense, what y'all seem to know so much, I'm asking. To which Monty Byers replies, awesome attitude to have. Monty's just setting people straight in the comment mailbag.
I got nothing, man.
Yeah, and we got plenty of comments, so we can just push through.
Yeah.
Hey, Lance, appreciate the comments. Appreciate the passion behind the comments as well.
I don't
And understand there are, hey, listen, I appreciate passion. Okay? He's frustrated. Let's see. I would be curious, Lance, how you feel after listening to Dan and now knowing that Kliff Kingsbury and Joe Whitt Jr. are the coordinators. I would be very curious. So if you could comment again, that would be awesome. We go over to Patriot Clips. Shout out Patriot Clips.
jump off a cliff.
So far, not Patriot Clips.
No, I'm talking about Lance.
Whoa. No, Lance, you're fine, man. So far,
Busy.
Peters has kept all of Ron Rivera's front office, keeping both Martys, and now he's picked a mediocre, safe coach who is the spitting image of Ron Rivera. Yikes. Now, keep in mind, this is all just amidst the heels of the hiring. KDot, people are catching up. Monty Byers goes, troll, get a life. And then we have Hester JD. I've never seen a new GM come in and then keep the old GM. That's weird. And I'm glad that this comment was made, Patriot Clips, because the standard, the industry standard, is to not clear them out in the middle of this because they've been doing a lot of draft prep already. So if Adam Peters got rid of all of them and the San Francisco people stay in San Francisco, then he needs to start from scratch the entire draft profile. So he's keeping them to figure out what they found out about these players so that when Dan Quinn speaks to Adam Peters, who will then speak to the scouts, they will look for specific traits because they already have the profiles. If we were to let them go right now, we are fucked all over again. So I would honestly, a clear out happens typically after. And I think these guys know it too. It's probably going to happen. But for now, they are needed. KDot?
This is my most depressing mailbag we've ever done.
And one of us has a positive attitude about it. So buck up and answer this. Let's go.
All right, look, man, I don't insult them. Don't insult anyone. The idea would be
they're passionate.
Fucking mentally disturbed, as we all are. We're Commanders fans. But
that's a fair point.
How it is that you look, man, if you start realizing that you're pulling shit out of your ass, like, and it's just everything you're getting are just talking points that another 100,000 people are making on Twitter, reevaluate what you're doing. Like, this doesn't even take that much
commenting.
It doesn't take that much effort to, hey, how about I just take 10 minutes to research what other GMs have done? Because it makes me question how much football you watch when you question that they wouldn't clear house.
Allow me to be the lawyer for these fans, if you will. Okay. A lot of people got swept up by the rumor, right? That NFL media people put out. Okay. I don't fault them for getting swept up. I don't fault them for their initial reaction either. We run this podcast. That's why I decided to do extensive research on the guy. If we didn't, maybe I'm also like that. Okay. So there are some people that just didn't. That is okay. I think we got a really good guy here. They'll see. But they every right to feel frustrated in that moment, knowing what they knew.
I'm not the smartest man. I'm pretty stupid. But in the grand scheme, all things are relative.
You're gonna love this next comment, by the way. It's just
we got to do better, guys.
Let's go to Jess Anto in that case, because I think you're honestly going to. Jess Anto always has a fantastic comment.
Yeah.
So here we go. Craig Hoffman interviewed KJ Wright, which was excellent. KJ said Quinn's biggest mistake in Atlanta was the fact that he did not call the defensive plays and let the coordinator handle the defensive play calling. It must be said that is happening again this time, okay? But he does have experience with Joe Whitt this time around, which is very, very important. And we've talked about them complementing each other. He said Quinn is too brilliant not to call the plays. You don't see McVay, Reed, or Shanahan giving up the play calling. Quinn is not the sexy up-and-comer. He's the practical hire. The fan base is freaking the. Oh, I'm sorry. He's the practical hire. Experience, contacts, and leadership. The fan base is freaking the fuck out over it because they believe our front office screwed up the Ben Johnson hire. In all honesty, the front office and ownership has had a methodical, patient, stealth, and meticulous approach for the first time in 30 years. Johnson showed a lot, by the way he handled Washington, which was incredibly immature. Keim had an excellent analogy. He said that these new coaching prospects are like draft picks. You have no idea what they're going to be like on their new teams until you see it play out. Fans sell themselves on these trending prospects, and when it doesn't come to fruition, they lose their minds. 99% of the population has no idea what's going on in these meeting rooms and practices. No one knows what the right decision will be, and that's why sports are so entertaining to watch and see how everything pans out. I'd really like to see Weaver hired as defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver. But more than likely, Quinn will further deplete the Cowbitches' defensive staff, Joe Whitt Jr. Either way, it's a win. As far as OC, Kubiak seems like a legitimate option, or they can cut Ben Johnson's kneecaps off and start ravaging his staff. I like Detroit's offensive line coach and Mark fucking Brunell, who is the quarterback's coach in Detroit. KDot, your reaction to that comment?
Jess, right?
Yeah, Jess Santo.
Jess, I don't know, male, female, whoever you are, Jess, let's get married.
There it is. I figured you would love that. I was reading through it just a little bit, and I was like, oh, you're going to love this one, bud.
That's well thought out, methodically written. Wonderful job. Wonderful comment. Not all comments are equal.
That's Jess Santo for you. And then we go over to Skins Forever. Shout out Skins Forever. And shout out Jess Santo one more time. It was an awesome comment. Let's have faith, Skins diehard fans. Burgundy and gold, HTTR. To which Monty Byers goes, yes, sir.
I don't like you still calling the Redskins, but yeah, it's good.
Funny how negative Skins fans are. We finally got rid of Snyder and Rowboat Ron, got a new owner, the Harris Group, the top GM, and 3 weeks later, criticizing the first decision they make. Unbelievable. All these negative Skins fans, unbelievable.
It's a mental illness.
Forever. There you go. And then we go over to Blood Clot. Oh, gee, shout out Blood Clot. We are suffering so much PTSD from feeling the loss of all the young-minded prodigies, Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur, Slowick, McDaniel, that when any young coach out in the league shows success, we cling on to them, and any older coach is a retread. We need to just let the past go. I think Quinn is a great coach. Did you see what Micah Parsons said?
I'm touching myself.
He loves Quinn so much. He even played with the idea of following him here. He equated him to a friend and a father figure. Can you imagine sniping a player of that caliber off their roster, even if it's next year when he's a free agent? I'd love to hear your takes on defensive coordinator hire, Dallas secondary coach Joe Whitt Jr., and how true are the rumors Chip Kelly is our OC? Seems like that is gaining steam. At the end of the day, what we perceive as the clear choice might not be the best choice. We as fans don't know shit. We just want good news so that we can go to work happy. I don't care who we have coaching. I just want to win. I think they made a good decision. That is Blood Clot's comment.
Blood Clot, restoring my faith in humanity. These comments are getting great now.
Yeah, see?
Let's go.
I knew you'd love this comment mailbag because it takes you everywhere, KDot. Takes you absolutely everywhere. I think it's a fabulous comment. There is a reply to it. Parsons will not be a free agent. You can trade for Parsons, though. This is true from Kevin Thomas. Appreciate it. Teams will not let an asset like Parsons go for nothing. Yeah, Parsons
not
will.
Dallas.
Yeah, certainly not Dallas. He'll be a free agent in a couple years, so it won't just be next year. And let's be real, after that much time passes, he's signing the fattest extension with the Dallas Cowboys. He will be there. But point made on Dan Quinn that he absolutely loves him and adores him, and a lot of the players do.
No, I've been on here saying that I think more could be actually be done with Michael Parsons, but I think that's also because of what it is they've been lacking in the front on that defense, so he's had to kind of fill some roles. But there is a damn good chance with some of the dudes that you've seen in that Dallas defense kind of becoming stars that Michael Parsons is not as effective under a new defensive coordinator than he was with Dan. There's a chance of that.
There is a chance of that. Then we go over to Mark, 1978. Hail to old DC. The same negative vibes Joe Gibbs got. Vibes, sorry. The same negative vibes Joe Gibbs got as he was set as our head coach. And we know what happened at the end there. Give him a chance, folks. HTTR. Appreciate that.
Wonderful.
From Mark, 1978. And then we got Dennis going, congrats to Seattle. This is in reference to the Ben Johnson turning down the Commanders. I love Pete Carroll. Hope it works out. And I think that is actually in reference to Mike McDonald, who had already been hired there at the time. Okay, so that's just a quick little aside. Shout out, Dennis. And then we go with Ridge. Wear your helmet up. Shout out, Ridge. I like the Dan Quinn hire because we'll never become a dynasty. We'll be like 10-6 on a good year and maybe make a run to the second round, maybe NFC Championship. Likeable like the Lions, but not good enough consistently to hate like San Francisco or Kansas City. I would have liked Vrabel too, but Ben Johnson seemed like a pompous asshole. KDot, what do you make of that roller coaster of a comment?
I agree with some of it. Other stuff, I wish he would jump off a goddamn ravine.
Go over to the Hawk. Shout out.
Or say into a ravine.
Shout out
Off
Hawk
of a ravine.
TV.
Into a ravine.
Shout out Rouge, wear your helmet out as well. The Hawk TV writes, he didn't write that part, but this is big news to me, but not all. However, I am announcing that I am a Ravens fan first and a Commanders fan second.
This tracks.
Oh, that's good. And then we go over to, is this Rash Street? Rash E Street? I don't know. The capitalization. Shout out this person. Thank you for mentioning Eugene Shen. Quinn will have to embrace analytics. Josh Harris mentioned that today because of Josh Harris. Analytics cannot be the end all, but it can help an open-minded defensive coach level the playing field to make informed situational decisions on offense. Could help buck the trend / narrative. Read defensive coaches go. Dan Quinn. Another comment
1,000%.
that goes right to what KDot, you may have written that yourself. It's possible. We go over to D-Mike. Shout out
D-Mike.
Chip Kelly as the OC kind of intrigues me because of his success with Mike Vick, a mobile quarterback. If we are set on drafting Daniels, what do you think about Chip being paired with Jaden Daniels? Well, I will say this, D-Mike. If we had taken Chip Kelly, I was all in on that. Yeah. The idea of Jaden Daniels being with Chip. Now that we have Kliff, there is an argument to be made for each QB in the top 3. Yep. So Caleb, of course, there's the USC connection. They like each other. That's one. 2, we talked about Phil Longo and the air raid offense being run with North Carolina. So that would be, as described in the John Keim podcast, very similar to Kliff's system. So that's with Sam Howell, and with Drake May. So if they prefer Drake May to Sam Howell, Drake May will be available at 2 as of right now. It looks like Caleb would be pick 1. Well, that could just be your guy that hits the ground running. And then you got Jaden Daniels, who it depends on how the Commanders want to do it. Do they want the best fit right now? Do they want the best quarterback? Do they determine Jaden Daniels is the best QB? Because one thing we do know about Kliff is that he does allow his quarterbacks freedom, and they are running a decent amount as well. They're not just like sitting in the pocket and that's it. You look at Caleb Williams, he's extending the play constantly. You look at Mahomes, the way he plays, he extends the play. Baker is probably the closest pocket, but at Oklahoma, he was extending the play. So like
he still extends the plays constantly.
There you go. So Kliff likes that little artist in the pocket that's allowed to move around and have total freedom. Jaden Daniels is an amazing athlete, and I think he has tremendous accuracy. We'll see what ends up happening over there. Any thoughts, KDot, right now? Any early front runner for you?
Kirk Cousins is not.
Yeah, actually, maybe rules that out. Maybe yes. Oh, that might be my favorite comment in the comment mailbag. We then go over to Hester JD. I have never seen a new GM come in and decide to keep the old GM. That's an odd approach. Oh, this was mentioned previously by Hester earlier, so we will skip past that one. Appreciate it though. Tony. Shout out.
Oh, Tony. Don't disappoint me, Tony. I got faith in you,
actually, Tony. This is actually a really sweet one. Everyone pay attention to this one, please. Man, y'all got a lot of comments on this. So as an OG of the show, I had to say something. OG
there we go.
Tony. Dan Quinn to DC is unenthusiastic, but I respect it. This is what the fan base needs. Dan Quinn flipped out the Rolodex and poached Kliff and Whitt. That's exciting. Also, y'all haven't done a collaboration in a while. I remember one collab with Ref the District. With all the news happening, I think now is a great time for collabs, and I think that would be a game changer. I haven't mentioned this out of respect for your craft, but this channel is awesome and way too underrated. That's in all caps.
Oh, damn.
Fans need to tune into this channel. The YouTube algorithm doesn't recommend your channel enough. I'm working on the tags there. I'll let you know right now, Tony. I think exposure from collabs and shout outs from other creators will boost your channel. What's your thoughts or standpoint on collabs? Tony, first off, we love you, man. Thank you for being probably the OG, I want to say. Like, you're the very first that consistently commented. We thoroughly appreciate you, man.
100%.
As for the thoughts and standpoints on collabs, totally for it. That's on me to reach out more. That's what I need to do. KDot, you keep doing your thing. That's on me. I'm taking full ownership for that one, okay?
As everyone knows, Amit does all the work. I'm here.
No, well, not the thumbnail. Not that intro of it. Hey,
you also see me turn around a thumbnail in 30 seconds, bro. So, like, don't even.
Yeah, no, I know. Hey, listen. Well, after the pause, just a love fest, people. Anyway, we go over to Tony. Shout out. Appreciate that. Seriously.
Yeah, for real, man.
We go to Jax Thompson, 388. They knew this time last year that they were going to fire Ron. You fired him day one, and I'm to believe Dan was the number one choice. I love these dramatic reads of the comment field back into right now. All the innovative football minds in the league and college, and there was no better candidate than Dan Quinn. Wow. Mind blown. I don't care if Ben or McDonald didn't come. I'm just at a loss that Dan was the choice. He's a 500 coach, same as Ron. Last season as a head coach, we're losing seasons. While at Dallas, they struggled beating the winning clubs. Then you get blown out your last game. I know I'm just a whiner. Okay, so there's some self-awareness there, Jax Thompson.
No bet.
Okay, go ahead.
Just saying, like today, right now, if somebody told me that like Halle Berry's waiting for me and we're gonna be a thing, and all I got to do is go upstairs and she's right there waiting for me, it's gonna sound great. She catapults my number one, right? But if I go and I meet her and she kicks me in the nuts, I'm like, I'm not into that. I'm into some things, but not that.
I mean, it's still Halle Berry, dude.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be like, hang on.
That's why I was interested when you were like Halle Berry. I was like, ooh,
but it's like,
okay,
hang on.
That's a hell of a leash.
But it's like, I got a girlfriend now. She don't kick me in the nuts. This ain't really an upgrade. So I'm gonna weigh some stuff, and I'm gonna be like, Halle, I like the idea of you, but it ain't gonna work, honey. Like, you can't be kicking me in the nuts.
You know what? For the sake of time and whatever that was, I'll allow it. We go over to Hester. He's back. Shout out Hester. Oh. Now we're going to hire Dan's buddy Chip Kelly. Dude is knocking on retirement's door, and we're going to make him the OC. Okay, honestly, I thought that was kind of funny. Shout out Hester. Of course, Kliff Kingsbury now the OC. But it did look like it was trending towards Chip when it seemed like it was clear information that Kliff was going to be the Raiders.
Just to piss you off, I wish Chip Kelly's like the quarterback coach or some shit. Just don't fuck with him.
Go over to David Brandt, 8561. Just think what Dan Quinn can do with KJ Henry. Do you think they draft Chop Robinson and use him like Micah in Dallas? So Chop Robinson is a D end. Sometimes backers. No, mostly a D end over at Penn State. Sound familiar? That's where Micah Parsons is from. Chop Robinson is an extremely talented player. As of right now, it looks like he could be available in the second round. I think it is possible. I certainly do think it is possible. What do you make of it, KDot?
It's a fairly weak edge rush class. But also, once again, like I said earlier, we need to be. We got to be really, really aware of stop making comparisons and following trends that don't need to exist. I would say open your mind. Don't look for Mike Parsons comparison. I'd say open your mind to like someone else potentially. Like, I get excited about the idea of Jamin Davis and what he's looked like on this team.
That's who I'm most excited for. Him and Cam Curl.
Right? And Cam Curl. It's like you have guys
secondary, man. Joe
Witt.
Like,
we have guys that are physically gifted. It's just that I don't think they've ever been used necessarily properly.
Taking a swing at Coke. Why don't you go ahead and keep talking?
Well, I don't. What we have with Dan Quinn is someone that is going to utilize his talent. There was a quote. God damn! I wish I remember what the quote was. Something like I'm not looking for what my players can't do. I'm looking for what my players can do. And that to me is
he said that.
Yeah, And it's like,
that's anti-Ron. Let's be real.
Thank you. It's like when I see that, then I'm like, you remember those times when you saw Jamin like pass rushing, and you're like, why don't he do that more? Like
not only did he do it, he did it so fucking well. I was like, who the fuck is that freak? Like he was so fast to the QB. I was like, why do we do that more? Like you said.
So I think it's one of those things where what's more exciting to me about anybody that we draft, and trust me, there's gonna be we got a lot of draft picks, gonna be a lot of dudes to get that, and who we get in free agency.
We could move up and lose some of them. We could trade down. Who knows?
There is more talent on this team than we've been shown the last year. What does that look like? I'm excited about it.
I'm very excited for it. We go over to Vindo. Shout out Vindo. OG. Good hires at OC and DC Kingsbury. Great start for moving forward. Appreciate the comment there, Vindo. And then we go over to DJ Turner. Shout out. This man was a parlay machine last year until he retired from betting after going 3-3 in the wildcard round. Add Pete Carroll, Mike Zimmer, Romeo Crennel, Rod Marinelli to your 50-plus defensive head coach hires, and the Belichick was 48. Appreciate the comment there, DJ. That's true. Many defensive coaching hires over the years.
Yeah, who did he just name?
Add Pete Carroll, Mike Zimmer, Romeo Crennel, Rod Marinelli to your 50-plus defensive head coach hires. So
how far back are we going?
Well, as far back as you want, bud.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like what I was saying was that it hadn't happened recently. Of that list, when was Romeo?
And Belichick was 48. Romeo Crennel, he was over with Cleveland.
When?
Oh, man, it's been ages.
It's a while ago. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's just, to me, I'm talking about trends, right? I get it. I get what you're saying. My
like
thought
2008 or something like that.
Right. My thought was that it hadn't happened since like a decade. Rarely. That was my own side.
Believe it or not, we got through the comment mailbag. This was District Divided DC Sports Podcast, more specifically a Washington Commanders podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And if you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and KDot.
No, think before you comment, and then share this shit.
Share this shit. I personally love all the comments and greatly appreciate them.
It helps with the algorithm.
Love the division. It helps the algorithm, but also I love the division of opinion. It is called District Divided. We are going to have that after the pod begins right now.
You know, I do a show called Unequal Opinions.
Yep.
Not all opinions are created equal.
Yep.
That's why I do it.
Wait, what if I turn the... Ooh. Okay, I'm going to do that. Look kind of spooky.
So I want to tell the people in the listening audience that I don't have a lot of experience with meeting this person, but last night on the phone, A-Train made an appearance, and Lord knows was it a memorable experience. So I'm here, and the news just drops that Kliff Kingsbury is going to be the offense coordinator. So I know that at some point, me and Amit are going to have to link up to figure out when we're going to do the podcast.
Right.
I had just taken some shrooms. I'm microdosing. You know, I have a creative job. I got to be able to create. But I'm in chill mode, right? Like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch True Detective tonight. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. I'll wait to hear from him. Like, when are we going to do the pod? And my phone rings. And this is a rarity. I rarely look at my phone and see that man is calling me. He doesn't do it. Usually do it. So I'm like, oh, shit. He's either really, really excited or something's happening. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But I pick up the phone. And I immediately know. It's not a millisecond goes by before I realize I'm just on the phone. It's A-Train, baby. A-Train is here. So A-Train gets on the phone. He's like, hey, they did it. What are we on? They did it. What do you think that means for Caleb? You think that means Caleb? No, I don't think that means Caleb. What are we doing? We got to do the pod. And then I hear a woman in the background trying to get A-Train's attention. And I'm talking to my co-host. Get him up back, bitch. I'm talking to my co-host. And I'm on the other side like, what? Did the shrooms kick in? Did I macrodose? What is that?
For full context, I had to be reminded of that phone call just before we got on today. He was like, I met A-Train yesterday after telling me he took some shrooms. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, must have been a spiritual experience. Like, because, you know, took the shrooms and he appeared. And then I looked at my call log. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, no, we did speak, didn't we? I mean, it was something.
Because she wouldn't stop. She's like, no, I got you, bitch. Get back.
Well, so the Kliff Kingsbury news had just broken. We had been drinking, Lord knows how much. And I immediately get excited. I'm like, holy shit, I need to talk to KDot right now. Like, I was like, Kliff, he mentioned Kliff. We talked about Kliff. We're living in KDot's world. I got to congratulate him. It was a very positive idea. Yeah, a lot of love.
You said you loved me like 3 times. Like,
I do. And then all of a sudden, she just appeared and was like, look at this video. I was like, not now. I'm in the middle of telling my co-host I love him.
That shit was great, bro. Shit. I'll say this. A-Train needs to work on his misogyny, but beyond that, that shit was great. I was like, God, somebody getting beat tonight.
For what it's worth, I was hanging out with somebody I'm very comfortable with, and so
you almost had me on it. I'm like, bitch, back up. He's talking to me.
Oh man.
Yeah, that shit was wild, bro.
This is what After the Pod is for. Sometimes we just go behind the curtain and go, hey, you know what? That's just, you know what that is? That's just developing chemistry. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Hell of a drug, man.
You had, again, it was drinks, but you had talked about A-Train, and I figured, you know what? You should probably get to know him at some point. Probably see him just real quick. Give you about 30 seconds.
How long was phone was fine. Phone was fine. Phone is okay.
You don't want to meet him?
Nah. If A-Train called me a bitch, I don't know what we're going to do. There'll be some fisticuffs.
Just checking how long the call was. Oh, man. It was 2.5 minutes?
Yeah, sounds right.
Oh, like 10 seconds.
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. 2.5 minutes of that.
Then it came.
Oh, boy.
Hey, you want to do it at noon tomorrow? Oh, it's Monday. That's not happening.
Oh, I remember that part. I was like, yeah, dude, are you crazy? It's Monday.
I was like, I get it. You ain't going to sleep until 9 a.m. Like Coke. I get it.
I did wake up at like 3:30 a.m. Could not go back to bed. I was wired.
It will do that. You're not beating the allegations, dog.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even trying to at this point. It's just what happened. Okay, I got excited because KDot called it, and then yeah,
bitches declaring to beware.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I'm just guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. I promise I'm not.
How's your wife? How's your kids?
I am glad. Rich Where Your Helmet At has seen A-Train numerous times. Rich Where Your Helmet At is good at producing A-Train.
Yeah, Rich Where Your Helmet At seems like he is the summoner of A-Train. There's no denying he's the summoner
of A-Train summoner.
So Rich Where Your Helmet At he called me last week.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, I'm running the Jameson promos at Raven Stadium. Where are you? Like, what?
I was on the phone with him just before. He's like, you think if I call KDot, like he would? I was like, yeah, give him a call.
I was on the road. But yeah, I would have probably stopped by. I might have stopped by. I might actually stop by. But it was like, no, Ridge is he's a weird cat.
You know he got into the stadium, right?
Yeah, I saw his social media.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great story. So I'm not gonna say how on here, but like it was awesome story.
Well, I don't know that this motherfucker, he just shows up. Like watching his Instagram page is like it's
electric content. You got to give it.
I'm in South America with a bunch of co-eds. Don't ask the rages. we're doing things. Hey, I'm in Thailand. So fuck you doing that, bro? Like, what do you do for work? I don't mean like, what do you do?
Explore the world, man. Come back with stories. Come back with experiences.
Yeah, I have a theory.
Be able to bridge the gap. Oh, what's your theory?
My theory is that he summons A-Trains to hit some licks, and then he goes and travels. I think A-Train at night might be boosting a bitch or two, or maybe engage in some pimping activities. I don't know.
Absolutely deny that. That is ridiculous. No.
Well, you don't even remember a phone call. I'm just saying, there's some shit.
I don't remember it being 2.5 minutes. I remember you going 11:30 tomorrow, and I was like, absolutely not. Remember that.
You had to be reminded the call happened in the first place. Remember? Yeah. No revisionist history of this. See, this is it. Yep. You even try. See, this is what I'm saying. And the whole argument gets started out. You stuttered, muttered. He might fold under pressure.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I completely forgot it happened. Like he's like, yeah, man. Anyway, we're just recycling content at this point. I'm just gonna grab the L, just both hands.
I would say it's an L. it's a win that I don't want. You can have it. It's a win. I just don't want it.
It's a win that I don't want. All right, we're going to end on that note. We'll see you guys next week. Take it easy.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.